Welcome back to our course on next steps. I'm just grateful that you're taking the time and the energy and the effort to go through these courses. Our hope is to disciple. Remember, Jesus told us in the baptism courses that we're to make disciples, teaching people to observe the things He's taught us. And we want to pass on things that will help you have a foundation to build on and to grow on in your Christian walk. I want to ask you a question. If you've been around the Vineyard for any length of time, you ought to know the answer to this. But I'm going to challenge you. What does the V, and you can do it either way, the V in Vineyard stand for? Volunteer. Thank you. You got it right. You win. You get an A. The V in Vineyard stands for vol. Does it have two E's in volunteer? Yeah. That's a miracle. The V in Vineyard stands for volunteer. I want to talk to you about the joy of serving, that everybody at the Vineyard has an invitation to do the stuff that Jesus called us to do. Everyone gets to play. It's not just for a few select superstars, that's a terrible star, but we don't want superstars anyway. It's not about, he's laughing, I'll let you come make me a star. I used to be pretty good at making stars, but a lot of people have the concept that the church is about a few, pastor, and they kind of do everything. And let me just say this, if we didn't have volunteers in this church, there wouldn't be hardly anything get done. I know what it is to try to be this superstar, in a church. I know what it is to try to think, there was a time when I first started pastoring that I was the yard maintenance man. I did the student group ministry. I led student ministry. I pastored the church. I taught Sunday school. I preached Sunday morning, Sunday night, took people out on visitations on Tuesday night, had Wednesday night service. I did every wedding, every funeral, did every counseling session, visited people in their homes, visited the shut-ins. I did everything that needed to be done, which meant that not much got done, is the reality. And I got burned out, and it nearly killed me. And one of the joys that I've learned in coming to Cape Coral is how to build a volunteer army. Because without volunteers, you can't, if you try to hire enough superstars to do everything, you're either going to be multimillionaire and you can just hire everybody to do everything, but even then, you're not going to get much done. I mean, we in our church, literally, what do we have? We must have how many volunteers? And to pull off 1 week in this church, how many volunteers in a week will people work in this church? 80. So if 80 people, and I think that's a low number, I'd challenge it, but I think if you put in Student Nova but let's say 80, if you had to hire 80 people and let's say each of them puts in 2 hours, that's 160 hours a week if you were trying to hire that many people. And if you were just paying them, $10 an hour, now you're at, it's $10 an hour times 160, is it 10? $1,600, and not many people that do the level that some of people serve at, even like our musicians, you're going to hire them for that. And a lot of people put in more than 2 hours. You're talking thousands of dollars a week. But we have people that give their time, give their energy, give their finances to serve in this church. Why? Because we have a vision. In this church, we have a vision, not many visions. We have one vision. We call it the vision of the house. It's the Vineyard vision. Think of it as an umbrella. And we have a vision. And there's just one vision in this church. Now, there's many times people come and visit, or they come and try to be a part of us, and they try to bring their vision into the church. Well, back at our church here, we always did this, and this could be good, but that doesn't make it our vision. It's your vision, and it might be something you do on the side. But many people come into the church, and they kind of think they're self-proclaimed missionaries, and my job is to help this church get a different vision. And let me just help you. That's the last way to learn to volunteer in any church. So I want you to look with me in your Bibles to the Gospel of John chapter 13. Christ is literally days before he's going to be crucified. This is one of the last acts he does, besides having communion with his disciples. He takes off his robe, he puts on a towel, and he takes water and pours it in a basin. And it says in John chapter 13, verse 3, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning. He knew who he was and knew where he was going. Verse 4, so he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin, began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. And he goes on and has this interaction with Peter. Peter wouldn't let him do it. He finally does it. But at the end, in verse 15, he says, I've given you an example that you should do as I have done for you. For I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent them. Now listen to me. Jesus modeled servanthood. Jesus modeled volunteerism. It's a servant heart that Jesus models for us. He didn't come telling people to come serve him. He was worthy of it. He came and being kind to people and praying for people and loving people and healing people and praying over the least of these and sharing the good news. Jesus came as a servant. And in our church, this is what we look for in volunteers. It doesn't matter what kind of superstar or what kind of high-powered knowledge you have or talent. If you don't have a servant's heart, that you can come to this church and say, how can I help? Now, you might be a week old in Jesus, or you could be a Christ follower for 30 years. It doesn't matter to us. If you're going to become part of our vision, which is transforming our community and our world, one life at a time for God's glory. We're going to partner with God. We want to let the Holy Spirit help us to transform lives in our community and in our world. We want to ring the bell. See people come to know Jesus, fall in love with Jesus, grow in Jesus, and now help us ring the bell again. It's just discipleship. That's what we're called to be. And we do it in a style, we call it the power of ugly. We do it where we're down to earth. We lead out of our weaknesses, not bragging about our strengths. There's a humility that's necessary if you're going to come under a vision, be a servant-hearted, and say, how can I help? When people come to me and tell me what they are going to do, and it's, well, I've come here from God, and God sent me here to do blah, blah, blah. Rarely does it work out. But when people come here and they say, I love the Lord and the vision of this church, I'm going to have a servant's heart, how can I help? They're willing to work in whatever area. We found a chef that helps oversee our whole kitchen. You know how we found that chef? He didn't come into the church saying, hey, you need me because I can outcook anybody in this church. I'm a professional. You know how we found him? We watch people. I watch people. Our leaders watch people. And we watch this guy showing up on Thursday night, dinner church, and helping wash dishes. Never told us that he used to own a restaurant. Never told us that he was a professional chef. And he's in the kitchen with volunteers that have nowhere near the training that he does. He's not telling them how to do it. He's just washing dishes. And in the process of washing dishes, we notice him, get to know him, find him. He ends up marrying a lady in our church. And we come to find out he's a professional chef. And so he was promoted not because he came in saying, let me tell you how to do it in the kitchen because I know better than anybody. But he came in with a servant's heart and how can I help? If we would have said, we need help cleaning, setting up tables, he would have gone and set up tables. So the V in Vineyard stands for volunteer, but we model Servant-heartedness. Now, let me just tell you something. You never graduate from being a servant. It's not like, well, I did my time. You know, I did the dishes for a little while, and I did, it's time for me to be promoted. You know, I need to graduate from this job. Listen, Jesus never graduated. He served from the beginning of his life. Look what it says, and these scriptures are so important. Look in Mark chapter 11, and these scriptures about Jesus, and he's talking in the context about how to be great in his kingdom, and there was an argument among the disciples of who'd be the greatest, but Jesus, he nails them with this kingdom principle in Mark chapter 11. Look at verse, I don't know why I'm not finding it. 10, thank you. Mark 10:45. Well, let me read verse 44. Whoever wants to be first shall learn to be a servant of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life a ransom for many. Jesus came to be a servant. He never graduated. Greatness in the kingdom isn't about titles, positions, notoriety, and visibility. The greatest people among us are often unnoticed in this church. They may not be seen, but they're behind the scenes people that without them, what is seen wouldn't happen. Behind the scenes, they're at work. Being faithful, where can I help? Now, we practice kind of a funnel view on serving. So here you are out here. You might not even be saved yet. You might not even be a Christian yet. You might not know anything about the Bible and you haven't been baptized. But you're among us and you want to help. Unless you are determined to be some type of predator, then we'll send you away. And that's rare. But every now and then we have to love on people and say, no, you can't serve here. But I mean, we have a broad funnel, wide funnel out here where people can get involved. They can serve in the church. We call these first serve opportunities. It's not that the job is less important. It's just less involved in leading others. It's less involved in being recognized in a position of authority and responsibility and leadership. So we call these first serve opportunities, and serving bagels, and helping at the door, cleaning up, setting tables up, doing dishes. We have a myriad of things that we look at and what we look for in this is we want to find fat people. Faithful is the first fat. Now I know that's not politically correct, and I know I'm a fat pastor, so I like the acrostic. So you might want to be skinny, and you could come up with a skinny acrostic, but it's too many letters to fill out. So I just like FAT, faithful. We look at people that say, I'm going to come help, and they actually do it. People that say, I'll volunteer, and they sign up, and guess what? They show up. A servant not only signs up, but he also shows up on time. That's half the battle. Show up, be on time. I don't care if you feel crappy. Now, if you can't make it, we train volunteers to let someone know you can't make it. Now, you're not being paid because you're not doing this for a paycheck. You're doing this to honor and thank God for how He's blessed your life and He's anointed and gifted you. We look for people to be faithful with the grace that God's given to them. Now, as you serve, now this is available. Available. That just means, here I am. Pick me. What can I do to help? I'm available. Not, well, I'm faithful if you only let me do what I want to do. I want to play the guitar. If you don't let me play the guitar, don't put me on the soundboard. In our church, we put people where they're needed, not where they want to be. And it's not trying to be mean to people, but we have to fill the holes that are where we're leaking, where we're needing. So we move people all the time, and part of being a volunteer is that there's no lone rangers. No one works in ministry by themselves. If you're working in a ministry by yourself, it's unhealthy and it's bad on us. We don't want one person being responsible for an area of ministry and they do it all by themselves, because it's limiting. And what happens if you get tired, sick, or move? Now at the end, the ministry dies. We want a team approach. Teams don't work if there's not faithful people that'll be available to do what's needed. Not to be the rock star, and I only serve where I used to serve back in my other church here, so I plan on serving. No. So we have this beginning wide funnel. Okay, but as you come in closer and start taking on more responsibility, we raise the standard and this is where this comes in. That's teachable. We raise the bar, and are you trainable? Can someone show you how to? That's not how we do it at the Vineyard. And then this level, well, there's still a degree of need for teachability. But it really requires, like for example, you're going to work in our children's ministry. You're going to be teachable to learn how we do it. You're going to go through the training. You're going to have a background check. We don't want unsafe people teaching anything, but especially with our children. You're going to have processes to work through as you move into this funnel from volunteering now to where you're more involved in an area and you're carrying responsibility and people are seeing you as either assisting or in charge of an area. It could be a simple area, but it's still important for us. So can we talk to you about your life? Are you grumpy to people? Are you mean to people? Do you have things out of control in your life? If you're not teachable, then you're going to be an unhealthy servant. You've got to be moldable. So we raise the bar as the responsibility levels raise. Then we actually have more training that's required, and we're putting in place right now a training for leadership development. So if you're going to lead any area of ministry, you're going to have to go through this training. So why? Because we want people to grow, not just to take more responsibility. We want to make sure that you're healthy and your soul's good and that your marriage is good and that you're not dealing with giant moral issues and struggles and addictions. We raise the bar. When you get down here to staff and then pastors, this is how we have homegrown leaders. We have so many people on staff in our church that started right here. All of them, in fact. Nobody skipped the steps. And every pastor on staff in our church started right here. They didn't come from some rock star out of town, skip the steps, and boom, they parachuted in, and they're a pastor in the church. Now, some churches do it that way. We're organic. We do homegrown leadership. And so by the time you get to here, we've known you here, we've known you here, we've known you here. You're in a group, you've been baptized, you've learned to honor God with your finances, you've got a fruit showing in your life, you've been faithful, available, and teachable. You've been fat, we've watched you, we've corrected things, you've taken correction, and you've moved up, or over is better than saying up. The funnel has tightened, and it's a lot more accountability now because there's more at stake. So volunteering has various levels to it. You never graduate from it. God expects you to have a servant's heart. Where can I help, Pastor? Or whatever area. It doesn't have to, most of our volunteers don't come to me or my wife first. They just come to an area that they start serving in, and then we watch. We look for people that are being faithful. They're showing up early. They're staying late. They're willing to do whatever's asked of them. And they're not like, well, let someone else do it. It may not be what they want to do forever, but they're needed there, so they're available. And they're able to be talked to and corrected and trained. And so volunteers is a journey. And I'm telling you, it's a journey to greatness. And I love the process of seeing people start here and move to here and move to here and move to, and sometimes then God will take them out to some other church, and we're always kind of reloading. with our volunteers. And so let me encourage you, and I'm not trying to be hard to say, for example, if you're a musician, we love musicians. But just because you play an instrument doesn't mean that you're ready to be on the worship team. So maybe you could be better helpful in the children's ministry for right now. But it's not that we're trying to keep you from an area of your passion and your gifts. It's just where you're needed right now. And if you'll be faithful where you're needed, God will get you to where you want to be, or He'll change your wants. You may find out you do better in the kids' ministry. And we have to love on people all the time and tell them, I don't know that this is the best fit for you. We had a passionate young lady one time. She was on the worship team. Nobody was more passionate than her, showing worship, but she didn't have the best voice in the world. It was okay, but our level of growing, the accountability rose, and there came a time where we said, we think your passions would better suit over here. Like, it hurt her. It was a hard cut, but she was teachable, and we moved her into another area where she blossomed, and the worship wasn't what was needed, nor was it what was best for her. And so we're not into crushing people's dreams and being hard on people, but we actually fire volunteers sometimes. Sometimes if you've moved, whether you're here or you moved up, and you're toxic and you're hurting people, and maybe you're driving other volunteers away because you're so unhappy or mean or disrespectful or political or whatever it is, well, we'll first try to make you teachable and help you. But if you don't, we fire volunteers. My wife one time, Pastor Kim, had to go into our kitchen, and we had 3 or 4 men that worked hard in that kitchen. They cooked, they did dishes, they served. They never came to church. They were unhealthy spiritually, and they were scaring off some of our new volunteers. Good people that they just, because of the atmosphere in the kitchen. And she sat down with all of them and said, we care about your soul. We want to ask you to come to church only. No more serving. We literally said, you're fired from serving right now. And we want everybody to serve. We have a big funnel. Come on, get in. But they were unhealthy. We care more about people's soul than their service. That's so important. We want you to be in church. We don't want you to have some lone range ministry or that you're committed all the time. Serving, and you never learn how to sit. You never learn how to receive the Word of God in a message. You're not in worship. That's unhealthy. So we're not good leaders if we let unhealthy people, so we fire them, but it's a firing to help heal them. Many take the firing, again, I'm saying that sarcastically, because we're not paying any money. You say, how do you fire someone that you're not paying money? Well, it's simple. You say you're not doing this job anymore. And we're taking the responsibility away, which is hard on us because we'd like to get the job done, but not if you're doing it in a manner that's not in line with our vision. Remember we talked about there's only one vision, and if you're not fulfilling that vision, that we're a church that loves the lost and we're not condemning and we're merciful. If you're not walking in our vision, then we're going to say, no, you're not allowed to represent us in any capacity until we see some fruits that there's been change in your life. So what do I say to you? Get in the game. Where can I help? Start somewhere. You say, well, I can't figure out where. Just come to one of the pastors, come to some ministry leader and say, I want to help. Where do you need help? Now, if it's something that's over your head, you're not good at, like if they say, well, we want you to help serve in the nursery, and you say, well, I'd love to. I'd be glad to help, but I'm going to be honest with you, I hate babies. Okay, you're not going in the nursery. Okay, so, you can be honest about areas that, like, I'd love to help there, but I'm terrible at that. And we'll find a place for you as long as you have that heart that says, where can I help? Be faithful, show up, be on time, do your job, be available, whatever's needed, change, move to, and be teachable. And that's, the V in Vineyard stands for volunteer. Thank you, though, for your volunteering in this church. And may it be unto Jesus. May your serving Him be for His honor and His glory, which is your reward. that you did it for him. Sometimes we overlook people and we miss people and we don't thank people enough. But God never overlooks acts of service and kindness done in his name. Thank you for volunteering. And those that are going to step up, take a risk, get in the game, become part of the vision, that when we ring that bell, you know you took part because you served under the vision of this church. Thank you for serving. Thank you for being the V in Vineyard. God bless.